Oh, let's talk about the AI. Yes. Can we talk about this shit? All right. So Sony put out a new AI powered Ghost. Okay. And if you want to call it that, Sony put out an AI powered Ghost that shows you how to get past video game obstacles and can even play the hard bits of the game for you. Guys, we talked about Sony and their AI before when they first created the auto censorship AI. Remember that? Now it seems like Sony is trying to create a auto play AI. And I'm like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, hold on. What the fuck are we doing? Right? You guys have been out here trying to create all of these accessibility options, difficulty options. And they keep saying that by doing these difficulty options and dumbing down the game, that that's going to allow more people to play the game than weren't able to play the game before. But it's been proven that that's not working. Because if you now need an AI to play the game for you, I mean, for God's sakes, you have boss skipping options. You have literal content skipping options. And now you're adding in something that's going to allow the AI to play the. Why are you even playing the game? Why are you playing a video game? If you don't want to get better at whatever the game may be, why are you even bother? Just watch a movie. Because that's what you're basically doing. Just watch a fucking movie at this point. Now, I know people are going to say, well, this is for the journos, right? And I get that. I get that. But realistically, if you could play some of the game, then you should be able to play all of the game as long as you put in the time to get better. The truth is that people don't want to put in the time to get better. And now they're going to have this brand new AI ghost that's going to essentially play the hard parts of the game for you, thus meaning you never have to get better. So you're just gonna go straight to that. When you give people the path of least resistance, they're always gonna take it. And this is never gonna allow anybody to grow better as a player, as a gamer. And the truth is that I don't think a lot of these people want to in the first place, which is why they want anybody who uses something like this probably doesn't want to get better. That's always just been my opinion on that. This should help Smash JT finish some games. I know, right? And then the funny thing is, they will go out there and they will try to make friends, and they'll be like, "Hey, I'm totally a gamer too. Yeah, I played Elden Ring. I played Elden Ring. Yeah, I played those Souls games. Yeah, so how'd you beat the boss? Oh, I just had the AI do it. It's fucking crazy, bro. Like, what do we again, I don't understand this whatsoever. I really don't. I will never understand this. Um, but let's see what's going on here. If you scroll down, as reported by All About AI, in 2025, Sony was granted a patent for an AI generated ghost player that can help you out when you're stuck. Sony applied for the patent in 23. These things take time. The patent proposes an in game interface that accepts natural language queries to identify which bit of the game you're stuck on, and they can either show you how to overcome the obstacle or take over and do it for you. Oh my God. The ghost character who provides ghost assistance will be based on footage of other players, presumably scraped from YouTube by AI. There's already a game help feature on PlayStation 5 that can bring up relevant videos when you're stuck, and this seems like a less jarring implementation of that. As far as throwing AI at video games goes, it sounds pretty inoffensive to me. Wow. Wow. The journalist considers the AI ghost player to be inoffensive. Wow. Anybody shocked by that? Because I'm not shocked by that in the slightest. The journalist is like, yeah, I don't see the big deal. I don't see the big deal here. Yeah, I'm sure you don't. You guys ever notice how the journalists, whenever they do a review for a video game, pretty much all the screenshots from the game are all from the beginning of the game? Very little of the screenshots are ever going to be from the middle of the game or the end of the game. Now, I can understand why you wouldn't want to use end of the game screenshots to avoid spoilers, but they only ever use screenshots from like the first hour of the game normally. It's because they don't really get that far. They don't get that far in the game. Remember when and I think Black Myth Wukong really exposed a lot of this. Remember when in Black Myth Wukong they were attacking the game Black Myth Wukong because they said there's no female representation in the game. Remember that? They literally took off points. I forgot who did it. I don't know if it was the gamer. Somebody, one of those guys did it. But they took off points due to lack of representation of females. Now keep in mind, their review of Black Myth Wukong was limited to the first 2 chapters of the game. If you get to the second chapter, you would realize that by the end of it, I believe by the end of it, you will see the Spider Sisters, whatever the fuck they were called. I forgot what they were called, but you would see the reveal of the Spider Sisters. You would see the female representation start to show up. So even though the game was limited to only 2 chapters at the time of the review, they never even got to the second chapter. I doubt they even beat the first one. They spent their entire fucking they spent their entire time in the first chapter. Isn't that 4? No. I'm telling you, they at the end, I believe at the end of the second chapter, they showcase female representation. I don't think they show you all the sisters. I think they only show you one. But my point is, like, you start to see the females at the end of the second chapter. So, like, what the fuck are we doing? So Journals definitely didn't beat the first chapter because I found the game to be hard in the beginning. Yeah, I mean, listen, it's pretty obvious. It's pretty obvious. So that game really exposed how they don't really play these games very much. The harder the game, the less they play it. They only tend to fully be able to talk to a video game when it's a really easy video game, or when it's something that's like super casual. That's when you'll realize like they really speak about the game thoroughly. But other than that, without that, they don't speak about the game thoroughly. They speak about it very vaguely, and most of the end game stuff they end up looking up on YouTube. That's what they do. Spider Sisters were chapter 4, I believe. Dude, I'm telling you, there is a female at the end of I believe chapter 2 in the cutscene. Because I remember mentioning it on stream. I was like, wait a second. I thought there was no female representation. So why the fuck is there a woman here? I remember seeing it pretty early on too. Sorry, that was a bad one. Whoa. That was a bad cough. Wow. So journalists gave up on Pride in their work 10 years ago. Shit, I would even say longer than that. Sage of Six Paths says after the first chapter, females start to appear. There you go. See? I knew I was right. Either it's the Spider Sisters or it's the other girl. I don't know. I don't remember. But I know like they definitely start to show up after the first or second chapter. So, you know, when I see things like this and they're like, yeah, this is pretty inoffensive to me. Of course you're going to say that. Of course, right? Look at this. And then the gaslighting begins. It's not costing anyone their job or, you know, devaluing the connection between artists and audience. These people are so fucking, bro. So hold on. You're okay with AI playing the game for you, but you're just not okay with AI making the art of the game that you're playing. Do you realize how fucking stupid this is? Do you realize how stupid this is? What the fuck, bro? So this is yeah, exactly. This is bullshit morality. It's so fake. If it means there's one less reason to splatter yellow paint telling us where to go all over video games, this seems like a good thing. The yellow paint is there because of retards like you. They want to utilize AI to play the game for you. You think they're going to take out yellow paint from the game now that they have a ghost player AI assistant? They're not going to do that. This is what I mean by all of these accessibility options that have been forced into video games. They didn't make people better. They made them worse. Because at first it started with, okay, let's make it easier. Then it started with, okay, let's make it even easier with more options. Now it's like, okay, well, it's not easy enough. So let's now make it easier. And then if people can't handle that, we're going to have an AI play the game for them. Before you know it, the AI is going to play the whole game from beginning to end. Before you know it, every single video game is going to have a watch a movie option. You guys realize that? Every single video game 10 years from now is probably going to have a watch a movie option where they're going to be saying, well, instead of playing the game, you could watch this movie for like 8 hours and you can see what the game's about from beginning to end. It's so fucking sad, bro. It's like if you're going to play a game, play the game. If you're not going to play the game, then go watch a fucking movie. That's it. You advocating for this is honestly really pathetic. And I know there's going to be people gaslighting out there, be like, "Oh, it doesn't affect you. If you don't like it, don't use it." It does affect you. Yo, shout out to the GCA podcast for the raid. Thank you, bro. I appreciate that. Thank you for that. It absolutely is going to affect you because these things affect the decisions of developers in video games in the future. And they are going to purposefully hold their punches when it comes to difficulty in video games because they're trying to reach a certain quota of accessibility. So they'll never make video games as hard or as challenging as they could have been if it wasn't for this bullshit that's required in video games now. You know what I mean? It just none of that fucking shit makes any sense. It's honestly really pathetic. So yeah, this is basically it's kind of like using a Game Shark, right? But at least with a Game Shark, that was like if you had a Game Shark, it was because the game like developers weren't developing their game based around Game Shark. They were developing their game the way they wanted, and then Game Shark was hacking into the game and doing things that weren't allowed. Now you have developers actively making decisions that are going to make games easier and easier and easier to the point where it's going to affect everybody, even if I want to opt out of it. So I don't know, man. I just looking at this, I can't help but just kind of facepalm. And look, here's the typical. Of course, that's not how gamers have responded. I hate these people so much, bro. I really do. I try not to because they're not worth the energy. But it's so obvious that these people have nothing but hate for the people that they supposedly do these this job. Like you write articles for gamers. At least that's what you're supposed to do. You write articles for gamers. But then every chance you get, you guys fucking attack gamers every chance you get. Blue Sky and the like are full of people furious at the idea of video games playing themselves when you should be struggling to get through every boss fight uphill both ways like we did when men still had hair on their chests in the good old days. Look, again, the sarcasm. Like, who are you trying to fool? Who are you trying to fool? What are you doing? Honestly. Like, do you think that you are so smart that nobody like oh my God. Anyway. This shit gives me a headache. Their life must really suck. Yeah, I mean that's one way to put it. Thank you guys again for the raid. Smooth the DJ said Sony got rid of difficulty related achievements because some people couldn't beat certain games in certain difficulties. Yeah, so it's actually funny you mentioned that. So right now this is probably why I'm sick. I finally have decided to dive into, after many years, I finally decided to dive into Marvel Spider-Man 2. The reason why is because I perfected on Steam Marvel Spider-Man Remastered. I perfected on Steam Miles Morales. And then I took a break and I was like, you know what? Let me just get it over with. So I played the game. And then, which I got to tell you, that game absolutely lives up to everything people say about it. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. So I'm playing that game. And one thing I noticed it in Miles Morales, where Miles Morales was so much easier than the first game, right? Miles Morales was way easier than Marvel Spider-Man Remastered to platinum. There was like 25 less achievements, and you didn't have to do any difficulty level achievement. You didn't have to do any of that to platinum that game. And then Marvel Spider-Man 2 is even easier. There's even less achievements in that. No difficulty-based achievements for what I could see. And I was like, dude, what the fuck is this? And I noticed that. Over time, they started to do that. So yeah, I'm not surprised. Sony is all about that bullshit accessibility. It's all about that terrible fucking accessibility, and they try to pass it off as progression, but it's not. Um. Anyway, this guy says, "Well, I remember the good old days." What's up, Smash? And what I remember is that we all knew Doom's cheats by heart and passed around walkthroughs. Again, cheats are not the same as the game being played for you, because the cheats, like the cheats, like the game wasn't being designed around the cheats. But nowadays, the games are being designed around accessibility, which are inherently making the games a lot easier. That is the difference. So you could bring up this whole cheat nonsense, but the cheats really were just there to fuck around with the game, right? This is the difference between the two. So bringing up the cheats, don't fucking like that. Just doesn't make any sense. There's no correlation there to be had. Because if you wanted to cheat, it was completely optional. But if you didn't, at least you knew that everybody got the same video game from the start, and it's obviously was a much more difficult video game back then than it is now. You missed the weird cheats. I think the cheats were pretty fun back in the day. Remember they used to have like the big head cheats, unlimited ammo, all that stuff. It was just there to have fun. So, but now video games are being designed with inherent cheating in mind. Think about that. Video games are being designed like all like you don't think that the what do you call it? You don't think that the yellow paint is like a cheat in and of itself? Yellow paint is kind of like a cheat because yellow paint is like telling you where to go. You know, like you don't have to figure anything out on your own. You just look for the yellow paint. So these games are being designed around this mindset. They're being designed with this accessibility in mind. And they're taking it so far that at this point, you can't even recognize these things as video games anymore. And I think that is a really big problem. I think that this is inherently taking away what video games are meant to bring you, like a certain level of satisfaction. You know, like a certain level of satisfaction you couldn't get from watching a movie. Video games provided that to you. And by making it where now an AI can play the game for you so that you don't have to figure out how to get past harder parts of the video game, which most modern video games come with such easy difficulty options that you probably could just sleep through it. I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know. Maybe I take too much pride in things. I guess it kind of makes sense when you look at the people who are advocating for it. You realize that a lot of them advocate for like getting free things, you know, socialism, all that stuff. You realize like they don't like putting a lot of work into anything. So it kind of fucking makes sense when you really do think about it. It's amazing how everything kind of trickles down. But that's just where we're at. That's how they are. So, and again, I know we made the joke earlier about this being like a journalist thing, but lo and behold, we pull up the article and the journalists are advocating for it. So it's not even it's not even a fucking joke anymore. It's just the truth. You know? So I don't know. Like the stream, boys. I think this Sony seems to be. Remember I told you guys that at what do you call it? At the end of 2026, we're gonna see who the big players are when it comes to AI, and how all these bigger like all these companies are investing in AI, right? We're gonna see who is going to be the last man standing or the last few men standing, and those bigger companies are going to absorb the smaller companies and their AI infrastructure in order to bolster their own. We're going to see who is going to be standing at the end of it all. And I think Sony will absolutely be one of them because Sony is trying to make all of these. They're pulling a Nintendo. They're trying to make all of these AI patents in the hopes that they can utilize that in their own gaming and also have other people pay them to utilize that in their own games. Sony is definitely going to be one of them. They're putting everything into AI. They're putting an insane amount of money into AI. So we'll see how that goes.